Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. Well, I got to admit, everybody, I'm really rusty. Haven't done this in 6 months. Kelsey, thank you for being the guinea pig.
Absolutely.
I guess I could kind of blame you because you're the one that reached out to me and said, "Hey, you don't have links to these two things. Put them on there." So anyway, Kelsey Lang is an interpretive specialist too with Washington State Parks. Kelsey, welcome.
Thank you.
First question I got for you just off the bat is, every organization has titles, job titles. We got park rangers, we got interpretive specialists. Are you a park ranger?
Yeah. So an interpretive specialist is technically what my job title is. Okay. However, I am dressed like a park ranger. I do summer programs with kids and introduce myself as Ranger Kelsey because that's what I look like. So I kind of combine the titles in order to help people understand what it is that I actually do and just call myself an interpretive ranger.
Okay.
Because it kind of blends the two roles. I'm like the educational ranger, basically, is how I describe it.
All right. So I told you I was going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, and I just threw you off with this first question. But what little I know about you is that you grew up in Florida, and now you're living on the Olympic Peninsula. Connect those two dots for me.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we both grew up in Florida. And when we started a family, we realized that we didn't want to put roots down in Florida. We were ready for literally the exact opposite. We wanted a new adventure. And though neither of us had ever been to Washington, that just seemed like where we should be in all the research we did. So for years, we tried applying to jobs and trying to make it work so we could get out here. And this job came up, I applied, and here we are.
All right. Well, another question here. You were so Central Florida to me, that seems like, is that like Orlando?
Yeah, we grew up like an hour north of Orlando.
Okay. So, all right. So Disney World and all that stuff. And you went to college there. Florida and the Olympic Peninsula are very similar, obviously. I mean, they're very, very similar. And
basically the same place.
Yeah, I mean, hello. No, but all kidding aside, how does somebody living in Florida know to be looking at Washington State jobs?
Gosh, it's hard to think back on how I started that journey. Well, I think a lot of it had to do with we started thinking about the physical landscape of Florida. I grew up going to the Georgia mountains and like the Smoky Mountains, really liked that sort of environment. And for my husband, he's one of those strange individuals that absolutely loves the rain. So when he looked up, where's the rainiest place that also has mountains, obviously Washington pops up. So
kind of, yeah, kind of does.
I think that's kind of how the journey started, was just thinking about, the physical aspects of the state. And that there's just so much diversity to the ecosystems out here. And the weather is a big part of it for us. Having grown up in that heat, we were done with it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So not that your husband's a part of this, but what does he do? What is his employment?
He is a stay-at-home dad. He homeschools our daughter.
Right on. Very cool. Very cool. So now, per this public-facing bio, you packed up and moved from Florida to Washington State during COVID. So you're one of those brave souls that was out in public during COVID. I'm guessing did you drive out here in a U-Haul, or how did you guys make the move?
a combination. We packed everything in a U-Haul, and we hired a guy who drove that for us, because we also have a dog who's Boston Terrier Pit Bull mix. So she can't fly on an airplane, and we had all this stuff. But we weren't sure about driving out ourselves doing the cross-country journey. So we flew, had all of our stuff transported and our dog. But yeah, COVID was a really interesting time because all these years of, trying to find a job out here, there started towards the middle to end of COVID, a lot of jobs were popping back up. And that's when I was like, now's the time, I think. Right. Okay. So I started putting my name out there and it just worked.
Okay. You, from what I understand, you are the interpretive specialist for 2 state park museums. Yeah,
it's a little more complicated than that. There's several museums, but 2 that I directly oversee. Yeah.
And that's Fort Worden and Fort Flagler, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, the other ones that you're involved with, which ones are those?
Yeah. So we also have the Rothschild House in Port Townsend that's associated with both Washington State Parks and the Jefferson County Historical Society. Okay. So it's a co-managed facility. They do like the day-to-day stuff, but we work together on the, larger interpretive exhibits, and the maintenance of the historic house and all of that. Okay. So we have the Rothschild House, the commanding officers' quarters at Fort Worden, and Fort Flagler's museum. And then there's also the Port Townsend Marine Science Center over at Fort Worden, which I don't directly have anything to do with, but we collaborate on programs and stuff from time to time.
This is the impossible question, and I'm saying this totally joking with you, okay? But which one's your favorite? Which museum's your favorite?
Oh, man.
You can pass. You don't have to. I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's like kids, right? You can't pick
that's why I asked you, because it was an impossible question. I was doing that. But of the 2, which one do you find yourself spending more time at?
It has varied over the years. Okay. The way that I work, I kind of pick a task and I focus in on it for a while. So initially I spent more time at Fort Flagler's museum, and then, the following year focus more on the commanding officer's quarters. And I've got them up to, better quality, I feel, as far as their displays and how we're protecting the artifacts in the museum and the stories that we're telling. And so now I'm kind of splitting my time pretty equally between the 2.
And based on this public facing profile that may be out of date, so the next question may not be applicable, are you using ranger housing at Fort Flagler?
I am, yes. Okay.
So you live at Fort Flagler?
Yes.
Unfortunate. The view there is just, so I'm sorry you have to look at.
I'm
sorry you have to look at that. Oh my gosh.
Right.
That's got to be kind of cool. I mean, that's got to be, and your kid growing up in that environment. Yeah, I think you may be doing them some harm. Honestly, you're really kind of setting the bar really high for them. I mean, when you think about this, here, go play at the state park with these, all these things. So let's just start with Fort Flagler and the museum there. And you said you took a year at each of these basically, and you got them up to snuff. What do you mean? Elaborate. What was, and before you elaborate, what, if any, qualifications did you have to, so what was your background to get this job? I mean, were you a museum? I don't know. Did you have museum programs in Florida? I mean, what's your background? And so how'd you land this cool sounding position?
Yeah, my career has been very interesting in that I've worked in many facets of the environmental field. My degree is actually in marine science with minors in biology and geology.
Okay.
So museum doesn't immediately jump out at that,
Not really. Yeah.
Not really. But I started off in the eco tour industry in Florida, working for concessions and the National Wildlife Refuge and Parks. And I worked for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and did water quality monitoring, bird rookery monitoring, studying seagrass beds and all that sort of stuff. So went from, kind of like your eco tour to your science. And then I went into education as a interpreter and program specialist. So I've kind of wiggled around, but I did come with some experience working in interpretive centers, which museums and interpretive centers are slightly different, but there's some overlapping qualifications there. Okay. But a lot of what I've done with the museums, I've had to learn. We have a curator of collections for state parks, Alicia, and I've worked very closely with her to learn protocols for how to handle our artifacts and how to preserve them properly, display them properly. So this position has really grown my knowledge tremendously.
Okay. So you started with the Fort Flagler Museum, spending most of your time there. Was it in, I don't want to say it was in disrepair, but what have you done to it? How have you, made it a better experience for the public?
Yeah. So Fort Flagler's museum is really kind of it's been a grassroots sort of progress, starting with, rangers and admin staff at Fort Flagler back in the day and volunteers jumping in to help. And because we had all of these cool things left over by the military, and then over time, people started donating stuff to us too. And back in the day, they thought we should have a place to show people all of this cool stuff, right?
Right.
So it was very unofficially pieced together, still providing a really cool experience for people to see these things that otherwise they would not have been able to see. So my main goal when I got here was to start with organizing what we have on display, putting items together to create a thematic display, a thematic experience. And then I started doing research surrounding those objects, trying to find stories that would relate to them to really sort of bring that human connection to what you're looking at. So largely what I've done there is just rearrange the artifacts on display to create a more thematic experience, add in some more human stories, and try to make it an exciting experience for all ages. We have a scavenger hunt that people can do, which I put together with my daughter a few years ago. I followed her around the museum and I wrote down everything that stood out to her, from her eyesight, from her eye level.
How old was she about that time?
She was roughly about 8 years old when we did that.
About 8. Okay. So that's kind of a cool age, very curious, and yeah. All right. Very good.
Yeah. And so the way that I designed the scavenger hunts is based on her perspective of the museum, a kid's perspective. And I associated pictures as well as some questions. So depending on the age level that grabs the scavenger hunt, they don't necessarily have to be able to read. The parents can direct them to find the pictured object, right? But if they're older, or if you're an adult that grabs the scavenger hunt, you can challenge yourself a little bit more by trying to answer the questions on there. And I have found that it's actually quite challenging for adults to do this, even though it was designed for kids. And you would think, okay, I can do this, right? A kid can do it, I can do it. But because she was looking from a lower perspective, the kids' eyes see things differently than what we do as adults. So it's kind of fun to have the adults come in and do it too. And actually get a little bit challenged by it.
All right. Well, on the Fort Flagler Museum page, on the state's page here, well, I got a couple questions. Number one, the Junior Ranger packet. What's going on with that? How are we getting kids? What's the state parks doing to engage kids?
We have a lot of different avenues to engage kids, and the Junior Ranger program is definitely one of them. So when you come in the museum and ask us about our Junior Ranger program, which we have a flyer, telling people, so you don't have to come already knowing about it.
Okay.
We have these booklets that are designed for kids to teach them about parks. What is state parks? What do we do at state parks? What types of ecosystems do we have within our park systems? What can you do as far as stewardship to help our parks? So the goal of the Junior Ranger program is to try to teach kids about the importance of parks.
Okay.
And it's got various types of activities. There's another scavenger hunt in there that kids can do. And when you complete the number of pages equal to your age, you can earn a little badge. And so that's super fun.
What's interesting to me is I'm on the Junior Ranger page, and in the last 18 months or so, I've done I would like to think that I'm fairly knowledgeable about the parks and what's kind of, more than the average the guy off the street. I can tell you that there's about 146 state parks, blah, 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 boom. And I can kind of go, there's, I think 14 of them on the Columbia River. I can rattle off a bunch of stats and facts. And I'm looking at this Junior Ranger thing, which I'm a little old for it. I have to do like 60 plus pages to get a badge. That's just not fair.
We need to make a bigger book.
I know. Come on. You got to have a senior program now.
Right.
But I'm looking at, this seems like a massive amount of parks that are participating in this. I had no clue. I'm like looking at these going, wow. And I haven't been to a fair number of these. Not that you're going to, do you know anything about Brooks Memorial?
I have been to Brooks Memorial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful state park.
All right.
Actually, reminds me a lot of Georgia, oddly enough.
Really?
Where
okay.
the parks I used to go to growing up. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm looking at these going, some of these are very cool parks. That I've been to that. Like, I love Fort Worden. I think I went to Fort Worden as a kid, and I think that's probably my first experience at a state park many, many years ago. Predating The Officer and a Gentleman popularity that it had that boom, I think, because of that movie. But I'm looking at some of these going, I've never been here, and I'm like, this is cool. So is each Junior Ranger booklet for the specific park?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Some of them do have specially designed booklets for their parks.
Does Fort Flagler and Fort Worden have specially designed booklets?
We do not. We have the standard Junior Ranger booklet, and there's been a lot of behind the scenes talks about maybe updating our Junior Ranger program. We're not quite there yet, but your comment about a senior book is something that's on our mind too, because
large print, please. Large print.
Not just kids want to earn that badge. We recognize adults want to too, but we want to keep those booklets for the kids that come.
Sure. Right.
But yeah, we've been thinking about how can we expand the program and maybe reach more audiences. Yeah.
So at either of these two parks, at Flagler or Worden, do you guys do the first day hikes there? Are you okay? So I went on my first day hike this year at Steamboat Rock. Okay. And I think the reason all the adults were there is they wanted that pin. They were like there for the pin. And I think people were like cutting in line to get their, I'm kidding, but they were like, I'm going to get my pin. And if they go out, I'm going to get the pin. And that was wonderful. That was the first time I'd done that. And my wife and I went, and it was really cool. And, nothing says fun like walking around in January in central Washington, because luckily the weather was really mild, but in fact, it was so mild that the ones that had this snowshoeing, they didn't do it because there wasn't snow on the ground.
Oh, wow.
But I think this junior ranger booklet, the fact that you may be, considering a senior something to engage adults, we'll call it adults. Let's be fair. It's just adults. You don't have to pick on me. And all the things that the parks are doing to, I don't want to say, well, I'm going to use the word market too. I mean, but it's like, I think that the Washington State parks are underappreciated because of under awareness.
Yeah.
Now, some of the parks, I interviewed the park ranger at Lake Chelan, and he told me, and I was flabbergasted, 1,000 campers a night during summer. They have 1,000 people camping at that one park in a night. And I was just like, yikes, that's just crazy to me. Right.
Yeah.
But some of these parks you go to, and have you ever been to Fort Simcoe?
I haven't been to Fort Simcoe yet. No.
Okay. I was the only person there. I was walking around the park, and it's got some really cool, old buildings, kind of like, of the period, a little earlier than Fort Worden and all that. And there was I couldn't go in the buildings. They're set up, but they were closed to the public that day. But I'm the only person walking around this park. And not that it should have been packed. That wouldn't have been fun either. I mean, but it's like, I just feel like they're underappreciated. Have you been to Sacagawea?
I haven't been to Sacagawea yet either. No, I haven't explored most of the eastern side of the state, actually.
It has nothing to do with where you're at weather-wise. Okay? So Sacagawea is in Pasco. So Tri-Cities. Okay. Fun fact for you. Tri-Cities gets less rain annually than Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
Okay, so it's desert. It's it's desert. And Sacagawea is on right at the confluence of the Snake and the Columbia. It's got great water views. The museum there is really cool. The one last time I walked through that museum, it was me and one other person.
Oh my goodness.
They're not, I feel like they should, it's not like this isn't a complaint. Okay. This isn't like you guys need to do more. It's more needs to be done. People need to hear about these parks. Yes. Worden's popular, Deception Pass, and nobody goes there. Right. But what's the other one I'm thinking of? Cape Disappointment. Those don't need promotion, if you will. But Alta Lake, for example, that's a really cool one. That's by me, and beautiful on the lake. There's a golf course right next to it. If you're into golf, all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love the fact that the Ranger booklet there is to get kids excited, so that maybe when mom and dad or mom says, "Hey, we're going to go to Birch Bay," and so I don't want to go, they'll be excited to go, and it'll be more fun for everybody that goes, right?
Yeah.
So I love this, that you guys are doing this stuff. So very cool.
Yeah. And I would like to add, I think you can download the Junior Ranger booklet online, if I remember correctly. And so there is a mail-in option. You can mail in your completed pages to earn your badge, or bring them in to whatever park is closest to you.
Okay.
So really, people of all ages can do the booklet. It's designed for kids, but if you wanted to earn your badge, you could print off those pages and go down to your local park and say, "Hey, I did it."
Right. No, and this is cool. I just clicked on the link where I can, I'm looking at the booklet now, and yeah, this is cool.
Yeah. I would say too that as I've been trying to get more in-person programming at the parks in my area, which is what we call the Olympic View area. So it also covers Fort Townsend, for example. So Fort Worden, Fort Flagler, Fort Townsend are the biggest parks that we have here. One of the comments that I hear frequently is, we've seen the sign as we drive down the highway, but we've never actually been out here. And a lot of times they're locals that are saying that too. So my recommendation is, the next time you pass a park sign, turn off down that road, go check out the park, just do it. Because a lot of times they're like, wow, I can't believe all these years, we've lived down the road or I've driven past it on my way to work and I've never stopped. So just do it.
So I'm on the kids thing, right? And so here I tell you that I think more of us need to know about this. Mm-hmm. There's a statement, whatever the raccoon's name is, that's the mascot.
Well, I think is that Belle maybe?
I don't know, but Belle sign. More than 36 million people visit Washington State parks each year. That's crazy. That's a lot of people. And yet I can go to Fort Simcoe and be by myself.
Right.
So I think, and you can go different times of year, the park. Well, you live at Fort Flagler. Mm-hmm. It changes.
It does.
So I am going to put you on the spot. You have to answer this question. Do you promise to answer this question?
I promise.
You live at Fort Flagler. What's your favorite season of the year to be there?
My favorite season is the fall.
Okay. And
specifically when the rain starts coming back in and the fog starts back in. It slows down. It gets really quiet. The fog makes it all moody and cool.
Okay. All right. What about Fort Worden? What's your favorite season for Fort Worden?
Fort Worden, probably summer. There's just a happy vibe during the summertime, even though that's the busiest time of year. Mm-hmm. The beaches are just so beautiful. That water is so inviting and everybody's just having a good time. It's really nice to see.
It's interesting that you almost went not polar opposites, but you like the moody, I'm going to make fun of you, dreary fall. Yes. And yet you like the summer over here. So it's like, it kind of balances out. Okay. All right. 2 questions, same question, but for two, and I'm going to ask this for both parks. But so question number 1, what's something about the Fort Flagler Museum that you think everybody should know about? Like what's overlooked by most visitors? What's the secret, not secret, but you know what I'm saying? Like what's underappreciated that you think needs to be showcased?
Sure. Really good question. I think one of the coolest things in that museum is part of the building itself. It's not even an artifact that we have on display. In one of the rooms across a beam on the ceiling, there are a bunch of greasy fingerprints.
Okay.
So the building itself was the old quartermaster storehouse during the Coast Artillery days. So that's where they kept all of their supplies for the soldiers and the families that lived out there. That was their storehouse. So there's been we had an anthropologist serve as a volunteer a few years ago, and he found these fingerprints, got really excited about them. And of course, we're speculating here. We don't actually know the story behind it, but he said it's very likely that there was a lot of downtime for these soldiers working in the storehouse. And so what do a group of guys do when they get bored? They have a jumping contest. And so when you look at the beam, you see these fingerprints at all different levels, and they're all kind of like grouped together. So you can really just kind of stand there and picture these bored soldiers living at the end of an island with no escape because there's no bridge, there's no ferry back in the day. Right. They finished all their tasks for the day, and they're like, let's grease up our fingertips and see who can jump the highest, right? It's really cool to stand there. And we've had a couple of kids too, kind of jump up and join in on the fun because it looks much higher than it actually is.
So 2 things. Number 1, you're absolutely correct. I can envision, bored soldiers finding ways of entertaining themselves. Right. But here's the question I have is, so that was back in what year do you think this was? You can assign it a year. Sure.
It's tough to say. The the fort was active right at the turn of the 20th century. So construction started 1897.
Mm-hmm.
They would have had their first men there by like, if I'm getting my dates correct, maybe 1900, 1902.
Right.
And then it lasted through 1953. So,
okay. So sometime in the last 120 to 75 to 120 years.
mm-hmm.
And nobody thought to clean the beam.
Right.
Nobody. That's where my brain's going. How come? Not that this is a bad thing. It's really cool that this is the story, but you guys made a museum, and here's this beam with greasy fingerprints on it, and we leave it. I think that's awesome. I really do. So that's where my brain went when you're telling the story. It's like, nobody cleaned this? Okay.
Right.
So the other question, part two, this follow-up question is, what's something that about the park in general now that you think is got a cool story that maybe is overlooked?
Okay. Okay. So one of the neatest features personally that I think, of the batteries is the formations of stalactites and stalagmites.
Okay.
So as the concrete batteries or gun emplacements have been aging, the water from all of our rain is trickling down through the cracks, pulling out all of that calcium carbonate, and it's recalcifying on the interior as like a cave, as these stalactites and stalagmites. So I feel like those are things we often trip over when we go and explore the batteries, but we don't really give it a second thought.
Right.
But especially over at Fort Flagler, they did some modification to the structures when they added anti-aircraft gun emplacements, which affected the drainage, the runoff of where the water was going. And so we get a lot more seepage through the cracks, and we've got some pretty big stalactites and stalagmites growing up from the floor, and then also what's called flow stones, which look like these frozen waterfalls coming down the sides of the walls. So I just think that is super cool.
Now, they don't have greasy fingerprints on them, though, do they?
No greasy fingerprints over there.
Okay. All right. I asked this question of the park ranger who is the park ranger at Lake Curlew Lake. I don't know that you're going to be able to answer this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you can, I think it would be fun. First part of the question you should be able to answer. How many camping sites are at Fort Flagler? Approximately.
Yeah, approximately.
It's like 130 or so, isn't it? It's
yeah, maybe even more than that, 150 plus.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
If you were going to camp there, what's the campsite you want?
Oh, I definitely want in the upper campground, the forested campground.
Okay.
We just redid the road leading into the upper campground. So 1 through, I think it's 13 have been completely redone and are really cool. But I personally prefer the ones on the back side. So I think those are like maybe 30 to 34, something like that. I like the forested ones.
So you have to pick one. I'm gonna try to get you because here's the thing. This was really funny. He picked one, and he described it and why he picked it. So I thought that was. I was very surprised that he went to. Not that I hope you go to this much detail, but let's see. He picked one specific. What?
I have to pull up the map so I can remember which number it is.
So he picked one, and the reason he picked it was he didn't pick it because it wasn't ADA, but he pointed out that it wasn't ADA. You had to climb up this hill, and basically when you got to the campsite itself, you had an unobstructed view of the lake. So from your tent, because it's a tent site, you had this beautiful. You were just looking out, and he sent me a picture from there, and it's like, yeah, this is a great view. So.
Yeah,
you can pick one campsite, and we're gonna promote this as the Rangers Ranger pick, tongue in cheek, but Ranger pick.
Okay. I really like Site 37.
Okay. So why?
It's on the back corner of the upper campground loop. And it has the furthest distance between your neighbors. So you feel like you're alone. You get more of a sense of that sort of remoteness that you might want. I personally want when I go camping.
Right. Fair enough. Okay. So Site 37. Kelsey approved. We're gonna have you put a sign up there. All right. So Fort Flagler, we started there. Now we got to move over to Fort Worden. But before we do Fort Worden, I'm gonna mix up my order of questions that I normally ask a guest, because I think my next question's going to require a Port Townsend specific answer. Okay. So Fort Worden's just out of town. You know, it's town, but it's just out of town. I think of Fort Worden as Port Townsend. I mean, they're like one and the same to me. Okay. So I ask my guests 3 questions every episode. I'm going to give you 2 of them right now, so I kind of prepped you for this, right? I love coffee. Port Townsend's a really cool town. Where's a great place for me to get coffee in Port Townsend?
Okay. So to answer this question, I have to take my Ranger hat off, because I can't have favorites as a government employee, but Kelsey's recommendation is Conduit Cafe in Uptown. Yep, they're really cool. It's like a combo art gallery coffee shop, and they have great coffee, great bagels and food.
Okay. If you're going in there, not in your Ranger garb, just kidding. You can go in your Ranger garb. What's the beverage that you're ordering?
Oh, I just go for an iced latte. I don't do anything fancy. Just espresso and milk, and
you're good to go.
Perfect.
All right. All right. Conduit Cafe. Now, you may answer the same thing again, but we'll see. So it's about lunchtime, and after I've had my coffee, I want to grab something to eat. Where's a great place in Port Townsend to grab lunch?
There's a bunch of good places, but again, my personal opinion, I really enjoy Tommy Knockers downtown and the Whiskey Mill. Both great spots.
And if you're going for lunch today, since we're recording this before lunch, what would you have for lunch today?
Maybe get some of that gooey mac and cheese from Tommy Knockers. So good. Their bowls are always overflowing. It's amazing.
Okay. Those suggestions were from Kelsey Lang, individual.
Yes.
And I think, by the way, I warned you, I'm frozen. So you get to look at me now the rest of this episode with whatever. At least my mouth. At least my mouth isn't hanging wide open. Okay. So let's go to Fort Worden. That's probably the one most people are more familiar with. Now there's 3 Triangle of Fire state parks, like Fort Casey, Fort Flagler, and Fort Worden. So we're not going to talk about Casey today because, that's not in your neighborhood. But Worden, talk about the museum there. What have you, is it basically the same thing? Did you, curate and bring things out? And more importantly, did you take your daughter there to do a scavenger hunt?
Yes, I did. Okay. She helped me, as well as we have another ranger with younger kids. And so I got their perspective as well and combined all of the ideas to make those scavenger hunts. Okay. But the Commanding Officers Quarters Museum kind of had a similar start. So there was a local heritage group, which was all volunteers back when Fort Worden first became a state park, and they really wanted to preserve that house and turn it into a museum. So they orchestrated most of what you see today, actually, as far as the collection goes. They got donations and went antiquing too. So the nature of the commanding officer's house is that that's where the families lived, right? And so between 1904, when the house was built, and 1953, when the fort was decommissioned, we had over 30 families that lived in that house.
Really?
And yeah,
Well, I guess that makes sense. So, I mean, that's, yeah, okay. That's 50-ish years. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right.
yeah. So with, military culture, you get transferred to a lot of places, right? And
Right.
when you move your stuff. So there's not very much in the house that's quote unquote original to the house, because each family would have moved their belongings with them. So anyways, I digress a little bit here, but the volunteers put the museum together back in the late 70s, early 80s, and ran that for quite some time. And then it eventually transitioned over to the Jefferson County Historical Society, and they had worked with state parks for many years to open that museum and curate the collection. And then I think it was back in 2024, we had a meeting talking about the Rothschild House and this museum and kind of where their direction was headed and our direction was headed. And we both agreed that it would make sense for us if we continued our partnership with the Rothschild House, but then we state parks would just take over the commanding officer's quarters. So since then, I've been working to change up the rooms a little bit, but primarily my efforts have been in updating the stories told in the house. So almost all of the signs and the little display panels have new stories that are either oral histories, quotes from oral histories, or quotes from memoirs that we have. So you get, again, this human connection to the house, to the items in the house. You kind of understand what it was like for people who actually lived at the fort. And I think that has really helped people connect with the museum when they can see what it was like. And there's some interesting stories there, because life at a fort in the military was very socially structured. So your officer family life was going to be very different than like your non-commissioned officer's family life. And then very different from the enlisted men, right? So they had a much higher quality of living. Of course, they had this huge 3-story house. They had electricity, indoor plumbing, which was like,
right,
living so well for the early 1900s, especially. But there's a lot of neat stories that have been passed down, either written down or orally recorded, that we're now sharing with folks.
I'm looking at one of the photographs, and I'm only going to read this one sentence, and it's in the upper corner of the photo. It says Anders log. So I'm going to guess it says commander's log, the little sign. And so you see this journal open on a desktop or a table, and it says, "Dear future reader, it's May 10th today, Saturday evening. The weather is gloomy and cloudy." And there's more to it. But I really wonder what was going through that individual's mind to be documenting every day for a future reader.
So it's really interesting that you point out that picture in particular, because that is actually an interactive station in the museum. So that is something that a park visitor wrote. Yeah. So
it's not some commander back in the 1930s writing this. It was, okay.
Yeah, but
that's not as cool. I was making up this story in my head about, the fort's commander, and it's gloomy on Saturday. And anyway, okay.
But I think that entry is so perfect, because we put a few writing prompts up to try to get people like in that mindset. What would people have been journaling about back in the day? So you can come in and, pretend to be the commander, or, just look out the window and from your own perspective, what do you see right then? But we've been fortunate to have a handful of memoirs and stories that are shared in addition to then you being able to record your own story in the house. So,
and the other thing I have to point out is there's a photo here, and it's got, and so you'll know which photo I'm talking about. It's there's some like, I don't know what they are, but it's got the writing prompts piece of paper. Okay, and so there's some stamps or something below it. Or, what are those?
It's silhouettes.
Silhouettes.
Yeah, so we wanted to kind of, I had an intern a year ago, and we wanted to put some silhouettes up on the windows. So as you're,
no, that's not what I'm talking about. It's the metal things. They're laying on. They almost look like binoculars.
Oh, they are. Yes,
okay.
Those are binoculars. Okay. They're like vintage style, so those are fun to play with. They're not actually antique; they're just in the antique style.
Okay.
But we have this room on the 3rd floor of the museum where you can sit down at the commander's log and write your own entry. You can look out over the parade grounds with the binoculars. And then there's a selfie station too. So we've got some dress up items. We've got some fans and a cane and a parasol and, a few other things, mustaches that you can play dress up with and take some photos. So we're trying to bring life into the museum, because a staged house museum can be very static. It can be something that you just walk in, you walk out. But we're trying to appeal to wider audiences, make it interactive, and breathe a little bit of life into it.
So my takeaway from this photo, though, was what an unfortunate view to look out of.
I know.
I mean, you're looking out, like you said, the parade grounds and the barracks on the other side. I stayed in those barracks across the parade grounds. I was a camp counselor for my school district when I was in my summer between junior and senior year of high school, and the 6th graders got to go to Fort Worden. So imagine 300 or 400 6th graders running around that place for a week. And with us being in charge of them, I mean, anyway, we stayed in the barracks across the parade grounds from this view, and it's just an unfortunately beautiful view. It's a magnificent. The park's beautiful. I love Fort Worden. All right, so new question to put you on the spot, but I'll let you answer it for either Fort Flagler or Fort Worden. But famous people, were there any famous military people of notoriety that we are aware of that were stationed at either of these two places?
Really
Folks, I
good.
don't prepare these questions. They pop into my head. The guest just has to suffer. Sorry, Kelsey. This is the way my brain works.
I wouldn't say there was anyone like truly famous. The Coast Artillery Corps was such a niche chapter of the Army's history. Its heyday was really late 1800s to early 1900s. As soon as airplanes were in existence, like their purpose really kind of evaporated, because they're designed to protect against ships,
right? Not
airplanes. So because it was such a short history, and we didn't have any we didn't have battles. Right. There was never any war between our forts and an enemy, So a lot of this history that we present has been widely unknown to people. So no.
So no, Teddy Roosevelt didn't make an appearance, or are we aware of? And I would think over that many years that a president, it would be very likely to me that a president would have gone there. I mean, especially if they went out to Fort Lewis at that time, now it's JBLM, but it was Fort Lewis back then.
I don't know actually the answer to that question. It seems like they would have at some point, and these forts were across the country. They weren't just here in Puget Sound. So it's possible that a president or a much more widely known general had visited these forts, whether here or more likely somewhere else. But I don't actually know.
Okay. I stumped the park ranger. Sorry.
You got me.
Wasn't trying to do that.
It happens.
Yeah, or you could have made something up and I would have gone along with you, by the way.
No,
you
I
could have
will
said,
never knowingly do that.
All right. So back to my two questions for you at the Commanding Officers Museum. We don't probably have greasy handprints on the beams here. So what does this museum have that people might just walk past that they're overlooking?
Well, the scavenger hunt points out a few really cool items that people typically overlook. One of the weirder things we have is our footstool in the commanding officer's study.
Okay.
And it is quite literally a footstool in that the legs of the stool are made of deer legs. They even have like the little hooves on them still.
Oh.
So that's interesting.
That's not creepy at all.
Right? That's a really interesting piece. And then we also have a rug in the guest bedroom called a moss rug. And the scavenger hunt asks, what is a moss rug made of? And our little display answers that question, which is moss rugs are made of used old silk underwear.
Oh.
So people use their resources wisely back in the day. They didn't have a lot, and when things break, you find new uses for them.
Right.
You've probably heard of like rag rugs.
Yeah, my mom has
similar
lots of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, people are always looking for a green mossy rug, and it's like black and red, and it's made of silk undies.
That made me the most bizarre thing you've shared this entire episode, and you could have asked me that question, and no, I would have no clue, no clue. Okay, so we kind of did a look back at you got these museums, I don't want to say put back together. That's not the right word, but you've been updating and curating and trying to move the user experience forward all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next year or two look like? What do you hope for? What you might not be able to say anything, but what do you hope for? Is Fort Flagler got something that you? Please tell me you're not going to clean up the greasy fingerprints. But
no.
Okay, cool. But what's on the horizon for these two museums?
Both need some really big work done. The commanding officers' quarters, we have a long maintenance to-do list for upkeeping like the paint on the walls and both interior and exterior. So that's probably where our efforts will go in the future for a while. At that museum is just a lot of slow, painstaking maintenance work.
Mm-hmm.
And then over at Fort Flagler, my long-term goals is really to completely redo the museum. So I've been working on plans, behind the scene plans to try to get us to that point. But that's going to be a long time coming.
Okay. All right. In an effort to be fair, I asked you about your favorite camp spot at Fort Flagler. What about at Fort Worden? Have you camped at Fort Worden before?
I actually have not camped at Fort Worden. So I'd have to go just based off of looks.
Sure. That's okay.
Let me once again pull up my map here so I can remember all of the numbers. Down at the beach campground, There's on the far end of the loop, sites 38 and 39 are right next to a little pathway that lead directly out to the beach itself.
Okay.
And the vegetation is kind of high on the back side of them. So it blocks a lot of that wind that comes from the north, which is nice.
Are you saying the wind is nice, or are you saying that blocking the wind is nice?
The blocking of the wind is nice. It can get quite strong there in the evening.
It can.
Yeah, all throughout the summer too, not just in the winter. It really picks up. So those ones are kind of nice because you get sort of that natural shelter from the vegetation, and then you've got a walkway directly to the beach next to your site, which is fun.
Okay. I'm going to wrap this up because we could go on and on, but let's wrap this. I've never asked this question before. So this is a new one. Let's see how it lands. Which park would your daughter pick?
Ooh. She probably would have a hard time answering because she always has a hard time giving me a straight answer when it comes to picking a favorite something.
Okay.
But if I get into her mind, she would probably say Fort Worden because that's closer to where all of her friends live. So then there's potential for her friends to come hang out.
Well, and what a great place for the kids to hang out at. I mean,
right?
Hello. Wow. All right. Okay. So we'll wrap this up. But before I ask you the final big question, when you're not being an interpretive park ranger, what do you like to do? So you kind of live out there in the Olympic Peninsula. There's not a lot to do outdoors there. I mean, I'm kidding.
Gosh.
So what do you guys like to do? What have you found that's been cool and different? Well, I mean, just the fact that we have elevation is different than Florida. So what do you guys like to do when you're off duty?
Yeah, that's a really good point. The fact that we have elevation it will never get old for us growing up in such a flat place. So we're pretty simple in that everything excites us. We really like to get out and explore the area locally. So we've just within like an hour to 2 hour sort of radius have been slowly visiting all of the parks and natural areas that we can. So that's what we do. We get out, we go outside, we enjoy that elevation, enjoy the rain.
Yeah. Okay. So no, I'm just kidding. I mean, there are people that actually enjoy the rain, and I even though I live in Wenatchee, I grew up in the Tacoma Puyallup area, so I'm very familiar with the west side. Is there a state park that you haven't been to yet that is on the must-see list for you?
Oh boy. I really would like to visit all of them. As we've been driving, like I said earlier, when we see a sign, we look it up and go check it out. So there's not really a structured to-do list for what is next. It just kind of depends on where we're heading. We recently went down and visited Miller, Sylvania and Rainbow Falls, and I think it's called Tolme, which those were all absolutely incredible. Really cool histories to those parks too. Yeah.
Okay.
Just slowly trying to see them all.
All right. So here's the question I warned you about. You agreed. I'm going to remind you, you agreed that you would answer this question no matter how hard it is for you, right?
I agreed.
Okay. And you have to answer it, but you also have to give a reason why.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm setting the ground rules. Are you ready?
Ready.
Cake or pie?
Cake.
Why?
I love icing so very much. And that is a part of cake. But I also love bread. Like, bread is a huge weakness for me, and cake is just sweet bread. So cake.
Right. And if you could pick one cake what would it be?
Oh, shoot. That's an even harder question. There's so many good cakes. It depends on my mood too. I don't know. I'm kind of feeling a spice cake right now.
Spice cake.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, some people can answer that question just like boom. Other people are like, you're asking me to pick between my left arm or my right arm.
Right.
Other people are like, it's cake, and I will fight you if you disagree with me. You know, it's so funny to get these answers from people. I will say, and I've been saying this for more than a year. I need to go back through all the episodes and keep track of what people's answers are.
Yeah, we need a tally. Put it up on your website. Who's winning?
Yeah, well, there's no winning here, right? There's no losing here. Okay, there's no losing here. I do think, just because I'm the one that asks the question every time, right? So I'm present for the answers. I think pie's winning.
Oh.
And I think apple pie is winning as the number one choice.
Okay.
I do not recall anybody saying spice cake.
Oh.
So I do not. There's been plenty of people say cake, but and plenty of people say frosting. Okay, so I mean, you know, right there you would have been just like in the second tier of, you know, apple's going to still probably win, but right after that you're probably frosting and cake.
Nice.
But spice is probably you are in a category of one at this moment.
Nice.
Probably my guess.
I'll take it.
And there's no wrong answer. Well, actually there is. Pumpkin pie is wrong. I'm sorry. It's just wrong. There's no way I'll ever agree that that's okay. But you know, it's my show. It's my questions. I get to, and you know, but you're entitled to your opinion, and as long as it's not pumpkin.
That's awesome.
What didn't I ask you that I should have? Is there anything you want to leave the listener with as we wrap this one up?
Yeah, go on to Washington State Parks' website, parks.wa.gov, and check out our events calendar, because in addition to the museums, we also have free public events that are going to be happening starting in my parks mid-June and running through August. So we'll have in-person junior ranger programs. We'll have evening programs like ranger talks or campfire talks. And you'll also see some pop-up exhibits and pop-up programs happening throughout the summer as well. So keep an eye on that events calendar. I try to keep it up to date so you always know what's happening if we have an event or program. And yeah, come find me in the parks. Learn something new.
Okay. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking at the events calendar right now, and I'm kidding when I say this, but Gardner Cave monopolizes the calendar.
Yes. There's more than just the cave. The cave is amazing though.
I know, but I'm laughing because we used to have an events calendar on the website, right? And we were pulling in date. They weren't pushing it out. This is no shade. I'm not throwing shade, but we were pulling in, and you know, they run the tour multiple times a day. So we'd have Gardner Cave tour, Gardner Cave. People were like, what the heck is going on here? And I've never been there, and I want to go up there and check that one out. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm looking at yours and everything that you guys got canceled right now because of some construction work. Yeah,
I'm pretty bummed about that. We were hoping to open up the historic hospital at Fort Flagler to the public this summer. Mm-hmm. We had moved in game tables. We have pool table. We have air hockey table.
Wow.
Yeah, because the hospital started off as a hospital, but in the later years turned into a rec center for the soldiers. So we were trying to provide that as a fun public opportunity, but unfortunately there's the issue with the decking around the hospital, and that had to all be ripped up, and it's gonna take pretty much the whole summer.
Well,
so
and these are 100 plus year old buildings. I mean, they they're, I don't want to say they're fragile, but they constantly need maintenance. So you will always have maintenance. Something at your parks will always be under maintenance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes. So. But keep an eye out for that opportunity, because once this gets fixed, we want to provide it. And
awesome. That'd be really cool. That's kind of cool that you're turning into that. So, well, Kelsey, thank you for sitting down with me today. I really enjoyed this, and continue your good work. Those are two great parks. Once again, the Washington State parks in general are just, I haven't been to one I've been to some that aren't necessarily, like, have you ever been to Peshastin Pinnacles?
No.
So it's right off the highway into Wenatchee, right? And it's this really cool rock formation there. But you got to be in shape to probably really enjoy Peshastin Pinnacles. It's for like rock climbers. Well, I'm okay. My idea of rocks is gravel in my driveway that I walk on. I mean, so I'm not. That's not my wheelhouse. But it's a really cool park for that, but not for me. But all these parks have, across the state, every park that I've been to has got something really cool. And as I get to talk to more park rangers and interpretive specialists and people with the park system, every one of you has had some really cool stories to tell. And I just think it's fascinating. So thank you again for taking time to sit with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.